Tonight, if you get a fever, you'll open a cabinet. There'll be something in there for it. A pill, a tablet, a syrup. You'll take it, go to bed, and probably feel better by morning. You won't think twice about it. But for 99.9% of human history, that cabinet didn't exist. No pills, no hospitals, no antibiotics, not even basic painkillers. And people still got sick, constantly. Infections, broken bones, parasites, wounds that turned black and spread up the arm. Tooth decay so bad it reached the brain. A fever that we'd cure in an afternoon could kill you slowly over 2 weeks. So what did they do? The answer is stranger, more sophisticated, and more human than anything you'd expect. Let's start with the body, because the body is where all of this begins. Here's something most people don't know. The human immune system, in a reasonably healthy person, defeats the vast majority of infections completely on its own. Fever isn't your body breaking down. It's your body turning up the heat deliberately, because most bacteria and viruses literally cannot survive above a certain temperature. Inflammation isn't damage, it's a defense. Fatigue is your body forcing stillness so it can redirect every available resource toward fighting what's inside you. Ancient humans didn't know any of this at a molecular level, but they understood it in the way you understand something after watching it for 10,000 years. And so the first thing they did when someone got sick was almost always the same: rest, warmth, water. It sounds too simple, but it's also exactly right. Anthropologists studying isolated communities that still live without modern medicine have documented this consistently. Not because anyone taught them, because generations of watching sick people told them what actually worked. But they didn't stop there, because here's what ancient humans had that we almost never talk about: 300,000 years of paying extremely close attention to plants. In 2012, researchers excavating Shanidar Cave in Iraq found something inside a 60,000-year-old Neanderthal burial site that stopped them cold. Pollen. But not random pollen. Specific pollen from specific plants. Ephedra, still used in decongestants today. Yarrow, which stops bleeding. Groundsel, which relieves pain. Someone, 60,000 years ago, buried a body surrounded by medicinal plants. That's not superstition. That's pharmacy. And it wasn't just one culture. The ancient Egyptians documented over 700 medicinal compounds in a single text, written around 1550 BC, but containing knowledge clearly far older than that. Willow bark tea, which contains the active ingredient in aspirin, was used by cultures on every inhabited continent, independently. People in China, Egypt, Greece, and the Americas all figured out the same thing about the same tree without ever talking to each other. They didn't know why it worked, they just knew it did. And they taught it to their children, who refined it, who taught it to their children. Over thousands of years, that becomes something extraordinary. Not folk medicine, not guesswork, an empirical pharmacological library built across hundreds of generations of trial, error, and careful observation. Researchers at the University of Modena tested 71 plant remedies used by traditional healers in isolated rural communities in Italy. Places so cut off, they had preserved medieval medical practices essentially unchanged. Over 80% of those remedies contained compounds that science has now validated to actually do what the healers claimed. These people didn't have labs, they had generations. But plants were only part of it, because when you look at ancient healing across every culture on Earth, you find something else. Something that confused Western medicine for a long time, until it didn't. Every ancient healing tradition involved more than just giving the sick person a remedy. The healer spoke to them, performed rituals, called the community together, told the sick person with complete conviction that they were going to recover. The Kung healers of the Kalahari enter a trance and lay hands on the patient, while the entire community dances and sings through the night. Ancient Greeks slept inside temples while priests performed elaborate healing ceremonies. In nearly every indigenous culture on Earth, healing was a social act, a communal act, a human act. Western medicine looked at all of this and said, placebo, delusion, primitive people who didn't know better. Then we actually studied the placebo effect, and what we found was humbling. In 2015, Harvard professor Ted Kapchuk gave patients sugar pills for chronic back pain. He told them exactly what they were. He said, "These contain no active medicine," and he gave them anyway. those patients improved significantly more than people who received nothing at all, because the healing interaction itself, the attention, the ritual, the confident presence of someone who had seen this before, triggered real, measurable biological changes. Lower cortisol, better immune function, actual pain relief. The body responds to being cared for. Ancient healers didn't know the word cortisol, but they figured out, through thousands of years of watching, that a sick person surrounded by community and confident care healed better than one left alone. They built entire healing systems around that observation, and they were right. There's one more thing ancient humans did that we're only now beginning to understand. They fasted, not always by choice. Illness destroys appetite anyway. But across ancient healing traditions on every continent, intentional fasting during illness was common and deliberate. Greek physicians recommended it. Traditional Chinese medicine built complex theory around it. Indigenous healers across the world practiced it. Modern research suggests they were onto something real. When you stop eating, a process called autophagy accelerates. Your cells start breaking down and recycling damaged components. Your immune system essentially gets a reset. Some researchers now believe that the loss of appetite during illness isn't a side effect to be managed. It's a mechanism. Your body is deliberately diverting resources. Ancient humans, without knowing the word autophagy, simply didn't force food on sick people. They let the body do what the body was already trying to do. Now, none of this means ancient medicine was enough. It wasn't. People died from things we now cure in 3 days. A tooth abscess could kill you. Childbirth was genuinely terrifying. Infections that a single course of antibiotics clears in a week wiped out entire villages. Ancient humans weren't healthier than us. They were fragile in ways that are almost impossible to imagine today. But they weren't helpless either. They had pharmacological knowledge built across hundreds of generations. They had healing practices that treated the mind, the body, and the community at the same time. They had an instinctive understanding of rest and hydration that still forms the foundation of how we treat viral illness today. They had fasting practices science is only now catching up to. And they had something that modern medicine, for all its miracles, sometimes forgets to provide. Someone sitting with you. Someone who wasn't going anywhere. Someone who looked you in the eye and said, with everything they had, "I have seen this before. Here is what we do. You are going to be okay." We built hospitals. We invented antibiotics. We mapped the human genome. We saved billions of lives. That is not a small thing. That is the most important thing our species has ever done. But somewhere in that process, we started treating illness like a mechanical problem with a mechanical fix. Find the malfunction. Administer the correct input. Discharge the unit. Ancient humans understood something we keep having to relearn. A sick person is not a broken machine. They are a person. Frightened. Vulnerable, in need of warmth, in need of someone who knows what they're doing to simply stay in the room. Every doctor who has ever held a patient's hand is doing something ancient. Every family member who sits up through the night is continuing a ritual 300,000 years old. The medicine changed. The human underneath it never did. If this made you see something differently, share it with someone, because that's what humans have always done with knowledge that matters. They passed it on. And if you want more of this, the hidden history of how we actually lived, follow along. There's a lot more where this came from.